In my previous videos, I've mentioned some of the completely broken items and add-ons survivors used to have back in the day, and while all of them were absolutely wild in their own ways, no others have a story quite like Instablind flashlights do. Just the term Instablind alone can strike fear and distress into the hearts of old school killer players. Meanwhile, old school survivors will feel enough happiness to make you wonder if they're carrying a flashlight in their pocket. So let me tell you about the downfall of instablinds and the single match that brought on not just a nerf, but the immediate removal of them. Flashlights in DBD nowadays are nothing too special. Strength-wise, they're often outperformed by the extra gen pressure provided by toolboxes, or, more prominently, the immense safety provided by medkits. Flashlights of course do still have a place in the game. Using a flashlight against the killer is probably the most fun thing you can do as a survivor, and it allows players to punish any killers who forget to face a wall when picking up a down survivor. One of the most interesting things about flashlights is the added layer of depth they bring to the game, allowing for extra interactions with certain enemy abilities, like destroying the hag's traps, stopping the nurse from blinking, or stunning the wraith out of his power. While it kind of sucks that flashlights aren't all too prominent compared to the more linear toolboxes and medkits, they have absolutely had their time to shine, pun intended. While flashlights have been present in DBD from the very beginning, it wasn't until 3 months after the game's release on the 23rd of September 2016 in patch 1.1.2, where 2 brand new items were added: the sport flashlight, the green one, and the utility flashlight, the purple one, which is where the story of instablinds begin. While most people know that flashlight add-ons have had numerous changes over the years, you may not realize that the actual flashlights themselves had different attributes to the ones they have today. For instance, let's take a look at the purple flashlight. Its current stats are 12 seconds of use, 30% brighter beam, 15% longer blind duration, and 20% less accuracy, which is how much the flashlight bobs up and down when moving. But its old stats were 12 seconds of use, 30% brighter beam, 15% longer blind duration, 20% less accuracy, and 15% faster blind speed. Which, of course, meant that just by bringing a purple flashlight by itself, survivors would be able to blind killers slightly faster than with the other 2 flashlights. Surprisingly, alone, this didn't have a huge effect on balance and instead brought a unique problem for survivors. The timing for flashlight saves would be different depending on which flashlight they used. What would have been perfect timing for a yellow flashlight would actually be slightly too early when using a purple one. So if a player had been practicing their flashlight save timing with yellow or green flashlights and then they decided to treat themselves and bring in a purple beamer for a change, their hard work would be thrown out the window as the timing would be all wrong. And that was a genuine problem that some players had. Some players played it safe and committed to only yellow and green flashlights in order to stay consistent with the more readily available items, while others would forgo anything less than the best. These were typically the people who played more and had a large amount of purple flashlights stocked up. As with most of the broken items from the early days of DBD, the crazy stuff came from the add-ons. While that 15% faster blind speed from the purple flashlight wasn't huge by itself, when combined with some of the pre-nerf add-ons, things could be pushed to the extreme. While many add-ons sped up blinding speed, the biggest offenders were Odd Bulb and Intense Halogen. Let's compare their current versions to their old versions. Current Odd Bulb: 50% brighter beam, 25% longer blind duration, 15% faster battery depletion. Old Odd Bulb: 50% brighter beam, 25% longer blind duration, 24% faster battery depletion, and 25% faster blind speed. Current Intense Halogen: 40% brighter beam, 20% longer blind duration. Old Intense Halogen: 40% brighter beam, 20% longer blind duration, and 20% faster blind speed. While the add-ons remain mostly similar, the faster blind speeds of the best add-ons alongside the base stats from a purple flashlight allowed for an almighty 60% faster blinding speed. Considering that the default time it takes to blind the killer is 1 second, this setup would blind the killer in less than half a second, thus starting the reign of terror that was instablinds. Another important thing to mention is that back Back then, killers picked up survivors off the floor much slower, and I don't mean that old school players left survivors slugged for longer, I mean the actual pickup animation itself was like twice as long as it is now, which meant that anyone looking to perform a flashlight save had plenty of time to get into position, which meant the hard part was timing the blind correctly. Too early and the blind wouldn't count, too late and the killer could look away and avoid it. Well, it was the hard part until you add instablinds into the picture. What used to require some serious timing could now be achieved by quickly flicking on the beamer for a split second at the end of the pickup animation, or just flicking it on for a split second in general really, pickup animation or not. The killer would need to have an extremely high sensitivity and a very fast reaction speed to look away in time. Of course, even the instablind could be countered entirely by planting your face into a wall when picking up a survivor, but survivors knew this fact too. In order to prevent the prevention, many survivors would intentionally run into an open area if they knew they were going down. That way, if a teammate has an instablind, the killer is pretty much out of luck. And the torment didn't stop there. Due to how quick instablinds were, alongside the fact that the instablind add-ons all increased the blind duration too, they could and absolutely would be used mid-chase to confuse, disorient, and most importantly, annoy the killer. As of course, this was the era of bully squads, and if you've watched my other videos, then you've heard mentions of those too. And instablinds were just one of many tools these squads would use to troll, harass, and annoy killer players. I'll do a full video covering bully squads as a whole and their entire arsenal soon, so remember to subscribe if you want to see that. Words cannot fathom the amount of torment this caused. Countless hard-earned hooks prevented, teammates popping out from the shadows to instablind the killer while he's chasing somebody else, instablinds at every pallet, instablinds after each of the 4 perma-decisive strikes, and enough clicky spam to haunt the killer's entire bloodline for generations to come. But it couldn't have been that bad, right? If they were using the instablind combo, that means they weren't using batteries, and build to last wasn't around back then, so surely the flashlights would run out pretty quickly. While yes, they certainly ran out faster than a double battery build, the instablind combo somewhat served as a battery preserver in itself, as you'd spend less juice with each blind since you didn't have to keep it shining as long. And paired with Streetwise, you'd be surprised at how persistent those little lightsabers could be. Things needed to change. Many killer players begged and pleaded with behavior to tone down instablind combos. There were forum posts, Steam threads, YouTube videos, questions directly to the devs in the DevStream Twitch chat, and yet, for the longest time, nothing. Back then, the devs seemed to be much less understanding of the issues in their game and the type of frustration it would bring their players. It was as if that was the state the game would stay in, and that was that. Well, perhaps, until the 16th of November 2017, where the official Twitch Korea channel streamed content from the Korean G-Star event, and at 12:30 PM they had a panel with Matthew Cote, the game director for DBD, and he had the opportunity to talk about the game, and there was actually some great information and banter shared. Near the start, one of the hosts said that as the skill levels of players increase, the power of survivors increases too, and survivors end up being more advantageous compared to killer, and asks what Matthew thinks.
Yeah, so when you're at the low levels, killers have a bit of an advantage, and when you get to the high levels, the survivors have a bit of an advantage, but it's a very, very small margin. And something that we're looking at and constantly trying to calibrate.
And of course, it wouldn't be a DBD discussion if the entire room didn't erupt into chaos the moment the nurse was mentioned.
Oh, the nurse.
The nurse. Okay, nurse. 그래서
발음이
얌얌아 경고예요.
아닌 것 같아요 지금.
여기서 nurse라고 하는데 어떻게 nurse라고
여기서
표현하냐? 참고 경고야 얌얌.
And things were going really well until the host challenged him to play as killer, saying,
They're talking about how good of a player that you would be or how bad you would be, but him, Luxam, was saying that if you were a very skillful, high-tier player, the balance would be a little better. That's what he said. If you don't mind, would you like playing, a game as a killer right now?
Sure, I can do that.
And with that, Matthew switched to his favorite killer, who at the time was the Hag, and queued up into a public match against the general Korean player base. And in under 45 seconds of the match starting, the the survivors had already lost interest in the generators and had a new plaything in mind: the killer. After spamming alerts to get the killer's attention, they immediately took to spamming flashlight clicks and started the chase. When the first survivor was within lunge range, a miss. After the second miss, the onslaught of instablind spam had begun as he teleported to a trap set off by a different survivor. After that, Matthew had a new plan: securing the area and setting up traps. After clearing out a few pallets, he turned his attention to kicking the gen. One slight issue: the gen was bugged, leaving the game director unable to defend the objective. 2 gens in, and the second hag trap of the match was finally activated. A clean hit, followed by teabagging, and not one, not two, not 3, but 4 instablinds. After going on the defense and kicking a gen, a new chase began. And the victim's teammate emerged from the shadows to instablind the hag again, Matthew now visibly frustrated, shaking his head as the third gen pops. Heading over to the shack now and placing a trap at the door before deciding to drop chase in search of a weaker loop, before changing his mind as the third trap of the match is activated, back in the shack as the fourth gen pops. Just as he's within lunge range, a pallet stun, followed by an instablind. Nearby, he finds a Dwight and manages to secure his second hit of the match. Moments later, that hit is instantly healed by adrenaline as the fifth and final gen pops. As the match draws to a close, the survivors have a few more things in store for the hag: an instablind, a second, and finally a third. Before Matthew sees an object of obsession proc, which leads him to the rest of the team at the exit gate, where they teabag him relentlessly. And a nod for good luck. A grand total of 0 hooks, 0 downs, 2 injuries, and 3 successful traps, with the match lasting 5 minutes and 53 seconds. After witnessing the absolute beating that just occurred, the hosts asked Matthew the obvious question.
How do you feel? Not so good.
Now you felt how the killers feel when a team of 3, a team of 4 go up against you with flashlights and they just play around with you. So why not upgrade the killers a little bit if you felt what the pain was as being alone in the woods as a killer by yourself?
In this case, yes. The flashlights are extremely powerful, and it's very frustrating when you get an organized group playing against you like this. These are tweaks that are gonna happen.
And 1 month later, on the 14th of December 2017, in patch 1.8.3, those tweaks did in fact happen. Nerf. The faster blinding stat has been removed from the purple flashlight. Nerf. The faster blinding stat has been removed from every single add-on that had it. If you've seen my previous videos, you'll know that in the past, changes like this typically took between 1 to 2 entire years before they went through, and even then they were typically adjustments, not the outright removal of something. And of course, the community immediately connected the dots and determined that after enduring the torment of instablinds one single time, Matthew immediately went back to behavior and erased instablinds from existence, hence the unusually fast change speed and the unusually heavy-handed approach used. while Behaviour's official stance is that the removal of instablinds was already in the pipeline before this event ever happened and Matthew isn't even a part of the balancing team, the wider DBD community deemed it as far too suspicious to be a coincidence, whether that be jokingly or seriously. Thank you so much for sticking to the end. If you have any other things you'd like me to discuss in a similar style to this video, be sure to let me know. You can catch me live on twitch.tv/Ardetha.